Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to do, it's sort of linked to last Sunday's video, but not really. Basically, when I did the video, I was concerned about mentioning anything to do with scale, because, as I said at the beginning of the video, I was talking about the scale of battles. Now, obviously, when we come to Wargaming figures, scale means something else as well. It means the size of the figures that we're playing. And I had a couple of comments, and I thought I would. I had a couple of comments for people saying I'm a bit disappointed because I thought the video was going to be about adapting black powder for different scales of play. Now, I thought, well, you know, that's not a bad idea for a video, but the reason I hadn't done it is because in the back of the version 1 rulebook, there actually is a little section on rescaling the game for 6mm, 15mm, and 20mm as well. I think there's also for doing it for 54mm. But so I thought, well, that's in there. Now, I've had a look at my small rulebook, the one that comes in the Waterloo box set. And it's not in there. That's version 2. And I don't know if it's in the hardback version of the version 2 rulebook either, because I don't own one, so I don't know. So what I thought is I'd quickly go through the adaptations that we use when we're playing in different scales. Although, you know, for me, 28mm is the best scale to play black powder. That's not practical for everyone, and not everyone agrees. People think different scales are better. So I thought, well, let's have a look at it on here. So the first thing, and the easiest one, in my opinion, is adapting it for 15mm. So there are a lot of different 50mm manufacturers out there, and by 50mm, I'm also making 18mm down to 12mm as well. So an example of 18mm would be AB Miniatures. They are phenomenal models, really, really nice. Quite expensive. They're not, to be honest, they're not much cheaper than getting an Army in 28mm. In fact, they may even be more expensive. But they are really, really nice minis. At 50mm, you've got the old classics, people like Old Glory, or my personal favourite, which is Essex. Now, Essex are definitely not the best 50mm figures out there, but I absolutely love them. They've got real character. And I've got absolutely tons of them, so I love my my Essex 50mm. Down to 12mm, I'm not really sure what's out there for Napoleonics in 12mm at the moment, but I know a lot of people who listen to my channel enjoy American Civil War, ACW, and Warlord have obviously just brought out their new Epic Battles range for American Civil War, so I think it goes in for that. So when playing black powder in 18, 15 or 12mm, it's a really, really simple conversion. All I do is take all the measurements that are given in inches in the rulebook and replace them with centimetres. So, for example, if a unit moves 12 inches in 28mm, then it moves 12 centimetres in the smaller scale. Or if a musket can fire 18 inches, then it now fires 18 centimetres. Really, really simple. All you need to do is get rid of the two little quotation marks after the 18 and replace them with a CM or, you know, whatever the number is. So I think 50mm, converting it to 50mm is probably the easiest way of doing it. Frontage-wise, it's great because black powder doesn't really care that much about frontage, but I tend to use, and I'm going off the top of my head, I think my bases are 25mm, possibly 30mm. I think they're 30mm for 3 wide, so that's 10mm per model. So again, it's roughly half what they are in 28mm. Which, I mean, converting inches to centimetres isn't half, it's less than half, but it's close enough for rock and roll, as the saying goes. So that's what I do for 15mm, just replace the inches with centimetres. Now, interestingly, I do something similar for modern, but it's slightly different. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but when we play Team Yankee, we play it in 1/300 scale, and we replace the inches number with centimetres there, because they give their measurements in inches and centimetres. So that's another way that you can, perhaps if you play different rule set, and you're using a much smaller scale, maybe 6mm. Now there are some lovely 6mm figures out there. Particular shout out to a local company to me, they're a Sheffield company, Bacchus Miniatures. They do some really nice 6mm stuff. So for that you can convert that into centimetres as well. I believe LaSalle has movement in inches and centimetres. If you're going to do it in 6mm, I'd recommend, to be honest, I would recommend that you keep the measurements the same as they would be for 15mm, and you just extend the time period that turn represents. So in 50mm, they might be marching, for argument's sake, I don't know, 500 meters in a turn. Well, in 6mm, they're marching 500 meters or 1,000 meters, but the turns just last a bit longer. So that's, say, an hour's game, an hour's real time, rather than the half an hour that they are in 50mm. Whatever it is, I don't want to go too much into that because that's a different topic for a different time. But my recommendation would be for 6mm. If you are determined to play black powder, and I actually think Blucher might be a better set of rules at that scale, but if you want to play black powder, then I would just use the measurements for 15mm. But there is a scale that's very popular that lies between the 15mm and the 28mm, and that is 20mm, or also sometimes called 1/72 scale. Now, there are 1,000,001 different manufacturers out there that do 1/72 scale. In fact, I may even do a video on my favourite ones. Companies such as Hatt, or Strelitz, or Talieri, or my personal favourite, Zvezda. They do some really, really nice minis in 20mm. And they're a little bit of a stool pigeon. They don't quite sit in either of the camps. I think if you halve the movements for them, then they sort of stumble around like old men. If you keep the movements the same for 28mm, then they zip around all over the place, and it just looks a bit silly. My recommendation would be that you knock a third off all the movements, or all the measurements, sorry, I should say. Now, that's a little bit awkward. It's a little bit of mathematics that you have to work out, but luckily, black powder is on base 12, so pretty much everything is divisible by 12 or the factors of 12. So it might be 8 or 12, 18, that kind of thing. So knocking a third off isn't too difficult. In the case of 8, I'd probably round it up and make it 6. So it's not too difficult, but it does require a little bit more work than doing it in 15mm, where you just keep the same numbers and just change them to centimeters. I do appreciate that. Now, for the size of table, we always play our 28mm battle reports on, well, I say always, all but one of our 28mm battle reports have been played on a 6-foot by 8-foot table. Now, that's great if you've got the room for it. We obviously play at the club, so we've got plenty of room down there. That's fantastic. But one of the joys of using a smaller scale is you can use a smaller table. I've often talked about the first Napoleonic game I played, where I was General Van Damme at the Battle of Austerlitz. And we played that on a 6-foot by 4-foot table, and we had the entire Battle of Austerlitz, because it was a very zoomed out game. So the smaller the scale, the smaller the table you can use effectively, although, not necessarily, but for the sake of ease, because this is only a Wednesday night video, you can play a 6-foot by 4-foot table. You can have basically any scale that's below 28mm. That said, if you've seen the battle report that I played against General Dad, we played that on a 6-foot by 4-foot table, and I think it worked just fine. I think we reduced the measurements on that by a third, though, so you'll have to check that one. Now, finally, there are some people out there who are even more insane than me and play Napoleonics in 40mm. You can also get 7 Years' War in 40mm from Front Rank, I believe. It might be American War of Independence in 40mm from Front Rank. So there are those people out there that play in 40mm. My recommendation would be keep the measurements the same, because the figures, weirdly, the 40mm figures aren't actually that much bigger than 28mm figures. The frontage, you can probably get a 40mm figure on a 25mm frontage, perhaps a 30mm frontage. Infantry we're talking here. So you can keep the measurements the same, but if you've gone for the 30mm frontage, I would recommend adding a third onto the ranges and totals and things like that. Now, obviously, you're going to need a large table to play that, but if you've got that available to you and you like playing 40mm, and let's be honest, I would absolutely love to play a 40mm game with battalions and stuff, not just a skirmish game, but an actual 40mm battle would be awesome. I would recommend then that you add a third onto all the ranges. Obviously, if you get larger scales than that, I think we're getting away from Napoleonic wargaming there, but if you are going to, then obviously that would be in direct proportion to the amount you increase it. So there you go, just a very, very quick video there. Nothing too complicated. A quick recap for 28mm, use the measurements as they are, unless you're using a small table, so that's a 6-foot by 4-foot table, in which case I would knock off a third. I would also knock off a third if you're playing 20mm or 1/72 scale, and if you're playing 18mm or less, 15mm I'm going to call it here, then I would recommend that you just swap the inches value and use centimeters instead. That's it. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you to all the members of the channel, especially the new ones. you'll see I've added your names to the Roll of Honour in the end card, the Légion d'Honneur, I should probably call it, shouldn't I? And for those of you who haven't, please remember that we are affiliated to the Outpost. I actually popped in the other week, and they told me that they have started stocking Napoleonics more frequently due to the people who are buying them from watching these videos. So thank you very much. There is an affiliate link in the description down below. If you want to save up to 20% and help the channel at no extra cost to you, then click through on that one and get your Napoleonic goodies from the Outpost. But I just want to say thank you very, very much for listening, and I'll catch you all next time.